Revolutionary victory in the West were clearly fading. The succession of federal victories, Fort Donelson, the capture of Nashville, Shiloh, Iuka, Corinth, and a stalemate at Perryville, gave Union forces control of the major railroads and rivers in Middle and West Tennessee, along with northern Mississippi. The South, it seemed, was running out of time. In early December, Union Major General Ulysses S. Grant prepared for an overland campaign to capture Vicksburg. Grant's army held the key east-west railroad, the Memphis to Charleston, and a main north-south line, the Mobile and Ohio. Federal troops also occupied many of the towns in West Tennessee, including Jackson, an important railroad junction. To compound the situation, the Federal Army in Nashville, commanded by William S. Rosecrans, looked to break the Confederate line at Murfreesboro and move against Chattanooga. If both Grant and Rosecrans were successful, the war in the West would be all but over.
By December of 1862, of course, Nashville fell early in the year to the Federals, and they occupied Nashville from February 25th till the end of the war. And then after the Battle of Shiloh, the Confederate troops
was on the move. On the 15th, he crossed the Tennessee River at Clifton. Over the next 2 weeks, Forrest and his men rode at a lightning pace, engaging Federal troops at Lexington, Carroll Station, Humboldt, and Trenton. They skirmished at Rutherford and Kenton, and on the 23rd captured Union City. Several units pushed across the border into Kentucky, hoping to draw attention from the Ohio River garrison at Columbus. Along the way, Confederate cavalry destroyed miles of railroad track, captured hundreds of Federal soldiers, and confiscated tens of thousands of dollars in weapons and supplies. So complete was Forrest's raid that only one bridge between Jackson, Tennessee, and Moscow, Kentucky was left standing.
The rails were twisted, out of shape, couldn't be used. Trestles were destroyed, bridges were destroyed, telegraph lines, and of course, destroyed and what have you. Forrest knew that he had accomplished his mission. And by that time, I might also add, he had equipped his brigade from the Union storehouse.
When Stewart destroyed the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in Virginia, 3 days they repaired it. In this campaign of 1862, the West Tennessee campaign, the Mobile and Ohio Railroad, this railroad was destroyed for 3 months. Now that's how you tear up a railroad.
Satisfied with the outcome, and fearful of converging Federal forces that might await him if he delayed, Forrest left Union City in a drenching rain on Christmas morning, bound for Clifton. In Jackson, a division of Federal troops under Brigadier General Jeremiah Sullivan awaited word from Grant to pursue
That's
Forrest.
Jackson, Tennessee.
On the 25th, they got it. Sullivan immediately sent 2 brigades,
Which I'm about
engage
15 to
Confederate
20
cavalry
miles
commander before he crossed the
east
Tennessee.
of right now.
For Forrest, escaping across the Tennessee River was paramount to the final success of the campaign. The task, however, would not be easy. As he bivouacked the night of the 30th at Blake's Store, a Federal brigade under the command of Colonel Cyrus Dunham moved south from Clarksburg during the early morning of the 31st, hoping to cut Forrest off from the river crossing at Clifton. A second Federal brigade, commanded by Colonel John W. Fuller, just north of Clarksburg, received word that Dunham would engage Forrest at Parker's Crossroads on the morning of the 31st, and that Fuller should move with all haste to support him.
The battle begins actually the day before, when Forrest is camped about 6 miles northwest of here, and the Federal troops that paralleled more or less his movements, and they're about 5 miles away from his location, which happens to be about 5 miles north of Parker's Crossroads. So Forrest is sent out scouts the day before. They encounter the Federals who have camped at Clarksburg that evening, the night before the battle. And so they fight there. A couple of Confederates are killed. And early the next morning, both armies get up, start moving, converging on the Crossroads.
The Confederate commander knew of his unfavorable predicament. His options, however, were limited. If he fled toward the river at Clifton, he might not be able to cross in time to hold off what could be a devastating attack by Army and naval forces. On the other hand, if he waited until Dunham and Fuller combined forces between him and the river, he would be outnumbered almost 2 to 1. His only alternative was to attack Dunham and hope he could dispatch his brigade as quickly as possible before engaging Fuller. Early on the morning of December
This is a
31st,
classic maneuver
Dunham
that
began to
General
punch.
Lee would do multiple times during the Civil War. Attack one army and then attack another. Very Napoleonic.
Confederate
Napoleon,
pickets retreated north
during the
along the Mooresville Road.
early 1800s, perfected this type of warfare.
Still in the rear, and unsure of the size of Dunham's force, Forrest immediately sent 3 companies on the road to Clarksburg to slow down Fuller's advance. The rest, he moved to engage Dunham. A former lawyer and Indiana's Secretary of State, Cyrus Dunham rejoined the Army in November after having surrendered to Braxton Bragg 2 months earlier in Kentucky.